Hello. Many people probably think that they are decent at first-person shooters, and to be honest, some probably are. But some of us probably give ourselves just a little too much credit. I'm personally one of the latter. I'm a potato. After about a month of just feeling bad about it, I decided to try and do something about it. Enter the game AIM Labs. This game scores you and helps you work on flicking, tracking, speed, precision, perception, and cognition. So I jumped in and got a baseline of my score and what I needed to work most on. Turns out that tracking, flicking, precision, and cognition are my weak points. You know, the core essentials of any FPS. After this, I set out a goal, aiming for the bottom of the barrel, get at least the lowest score possible on the leaderboards. After about a few days, I started to realize some things that may help you start to aim and play any FPS like the champion you are meant to be. First, we'll start with the thing we all think. If I just had the best gear, I'll magically become better at FPS. Well, this isn't entirely true. While some might give you a slight edge, it ultimately will come down to the best piece of gear you have. That little meat sponge piloting your skelesuit. The big B, your brain. Training your muscle memory, reaction time, and ability to think in tight situations will give you an edge in any FPS. And in this video, I'll go over my thought process and struggles and how I personally overcame them. One thing I would like to touch up on, though, is posture. I am one of those strange individuals that likes to sit on their feet. It is the very image of comfort to me. But I thought, I'm sure you won't see any pro gamers up there on stage with one foot under their bum, so I tried sitting like a normal human being. Yeah, it didn't help. I tried sitting straight up, straight as a board. Still, really no drastic improvement. This leads me to my first point. Just be comfortable. Find your position and make it your own. This will help you focus more on the game and less about whether those gaming socks will help you slide into position better. Unless that is your position, in which case go for it. Another thing some people may struggle with is your wrist/arm position. This also comes down to personal preference. Some people play with a lower sensitivity, or higher, some with their arm, or just their wrist, or a mix of both. It's all about whatever you feel most comfy with. Try them out and try to pinpoint what's your happy space. I personally use a low sensitivity and point my wrist firmly on the edge of the desk. But this may change by the end of the video. But let's get to training. Flicking. At first, I was just trying to get the fastest score. Aim, shoot, move on. But then, after slowing down, I realized something. I keep over or undershooting. If not, I just outright miss. So I started from the ground up. Went at a turtle's pace to start with. Make sure I'm on the target and shoot. This taught me how to gain confidence in my shot, and it wasn't long before I was able to see the target and snap to it almost without thinking. And this is what you want, to snap to a target dead on without thinking about it, and the ability to confidently land a shot without over or under aiming. This took some time, but eventually I found myself seeing the target and knowing where exactly to place my hand rather than trying to place my crosshair over the target. I let my muscle memory take precedent over rather than relying solely on seeing my target, making sure I'm on center and firing. The next thing is my big one, the thing that really held me down the most and is the bane of my FPS experience, tracking. I could not get this, no matter how hard I tried. I'd always trail off after the target had gone in a different direction, so I took a step back and looked at the situation as a whole. Tracking has been described not so much as relying on being able to keep the cursor on the target, but being able to predict where they will go and not where they currently are. While this may have been common knowledge, it wasn't for me, and this changed my mindset and how I approached the test entirely and introduced me to something I had no idea was a thing. Micro-flicking, which is not one long movement, but rather, as the name would suggest, a bunch of tiny movements. Now, I don't know if I'm doing this right, but I took a swing at it and found myself consistently resetting my aim on and off the target, and my aim did improve. I think this style worked more for me because I'm better at target acquisition rather than target retention. So ultimately, the skill I learned from flicking and muscle memory carried over to tracking. Reflexes and cognition was probably my worst experience I had yet. It was a mix of the tiny targets and having to rely on seeing my targets rather than letting my hand slide into position before the target disappears. The only thing I could really do for this practice was just practice.
Quick editor's note. The reason why I really didn't have a tip or trick for this particular section is because it has a lot to do with how you perceive things and your reaction time. It has a lot to do with how you perceive things on screen, your audio spatial skills, and how you hear things. really practicing on these will slowly help improve them. There really isn't necessarily a fast lane to getting better at them. You just need to hone in on them.
After I found out these 3 little tricks and I was able to firmly plant them into the back of my mind and do them without thinking about it, I practiced on honing them, making sure that they were absolutely perfect, because in an FPS you don't have time to think about switching over to the things you learned. They just need to happen. So on the second week I did just that. I wanted to make sure that I didn't have to think about any of the trainings that I did in the previous week. I just did them and my scores did improve. I started off relatively low, and by the end of the second week I was Ruby 3, if that's good. I don't know. But ultimately, what you need to take away from this video are going to be these core things. Posture. Find your golden spot, that being where you feel most comfortable with your hand and where you sit. Muscle memory. Let your hand take some of the work and split the load. Your KDA will thank you. Microflex, or whatever method works for you. If you're able to predict where your opponent might go, run with it. Also, side thought, maybe start up a fortune teller booth.
These were just a few things that I personally found helpful, and they helped me overcome some of my own struggles. This may work for you, or it may be worthless for you. I just figured I would put it out there to the world and let you guys decide. And remember, if this was helpful at all and you guys want to see more content like it, just like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know what you guys want to see in the future.